Welcome to the SoulBodyHorse podcast, where we dive deep into the horse-human connection. Here we believe in the power of stories, in digging deeper, pushing further, and asking the oft unsaid question. I'm your host, Meredith Crawford. In today's episode, we have a very special guest, Kim Walnes. For eventing aficionados, Kim is someone who needs no introduction. With her horse, the Gray Goose, Kim was on the US ET from 1980 to 1986, winning the individual and team bronze medals at the 1982 World Championships, as well as Rolex, which is now called the Land Rover KY 3-day event. Ooh, what a mouthful. 2012, the Gray Goose was inducted into the US Eventing Hall of Fame and is one of the few horses memorialized on the Kentucky Horse Park cross-country course. Her current equine partner, Gideon is a homebred stallion whom Kim bred herself. It is another very special partnership, albeit a very different one, with Gideon uniquely assisting Kim in her life coaching and animal communication businesses. To kick things off, Kim, you've had two very special yet very different partnerships with your horses. How has each horse challenged or changed your understanding of what makes a special horse-human relationship?
In answering that question, I'm going to start with a third horse who preceded the Gray. And if I had not had that horse, I might not have been as attracted to the Gray Goose as I was. But that horse was an Arab quarter horse that I accidentally bought at a 4-H auction. And he was an 18-month-old stud colt. And I was 17 years old. And I had no idea how to handle that. So we had him gelded. Short story. We had him gelded. He had a very bad response to the tranquilizer. I was all by myself. There were no cell phones in those days. And he literally dragged himself around this very large field trying to get up. He had no control over his hindquarters. And
wow.
And until then, he was dangerous. I mean, he would charge and he would pick you up by your shoulder and shake you, and he would stomp. He was dangerous, a dangerous horse. And during that time where I didn't know what to do, there was no way for me to get help. I just stayed there with him and soothed him. I'm here with you. I don't know what's going on. Eventually somebody will come. My mother will figure out that she's got to come pick me up. Somebody's going to come and I'll get you help. I'll get you help. I just stayed with him. And after he came out of that, when the drug finally wore off enough that he could stand, he was a changed horse. So, the Black Stallion books, I grew up on those. They were like bread and butter for me. And so to me, that was always the kind of relationship I wanted with my horse, was what Alec and the Black had. Well, I had that with that horse. His name was Hunraff. I called him Raffy, and he was a dark black gray. And so we bonded. I didn't know anything about training a young horse. I got books and I read. We worked through it together. But at the end, because of our bond, I mean, he protected me. If I put him between me and, say, a young man that was harassing me, he'd go for him. He just
wow.
It was amazing. It was really like the Black Stallion. And I could whistle him up out of a 200-acre field and get on with nothing, not even a neck rope, nothing, and do anything with him.
Incredible.
We're just like, fast forward a number of years when we were in Ireland, and I first saw Gray across a sea of other horsebacks. There were all these horses in one of those beautiful stone-walled yards, as they have in Ireland, and we were there to do some field hunting, and they had a bunch of young horses there that they were going to take to a show. And so they were all 3-year-olds, and the Gray was 3. And he looked up with his ears pricked up over this sea of horsebacks, and he and I locked eyes. And I thought, oh my God, he looks just like Raffy. Oh my God, he has the same bump between his eyes. Oh my God, I got to know more about that horse. So I didn't see him again then for almost 2 years. I think it was 2 years. He ended up being really unrideable at 4. And then at 5, they brought him in and started him back up. And he was a very difficult horse to start. He had a personality just like Raph, only he didn't pick people up and shake them. But he would nip and he would kick. And I thought, okay, I know how to handle this. So I didn't have a horse at the time. And I asked the folks, could I please have a horse, one horse to train rather than just riding random horses? I just wanted a young horse. And they said, pick anyone you want. And I said that one. And they said, oh, anyone except that one because he's dangerous. And I'm like, no, it has to be that one. So through all of these, because I didn't have anybody telling me what I should be doing, I only had the horses to teach me. And I've always been very intuitive. And I just would listen. I would listen. And, okay, that's not working. That's not working. How could I do this differently? That's not working. Oh, he seems to kind of like this. I would just try stuff out. And of course, I made a lot of mistakes, but horses are very forgiving. And Gray was fearful. He was fearful of everything. He was just convinced that everything was out to eat him. And so I had to really build his trust a lot. My daughter helped. She was only 3 at the time. And he loved baby anythings. He would just melt. He would turn to mush in the presence of a puppy or a kitten or a kid. He just would be like mush. So she helped him learn to start trusting me. And then we had many, many adventures that we went through together. I got left behind quite often. He would dump me and run home back to the stable yard. But slowly, gradually, we began to develop some trust in one another. And through the years, it always amazes me that he became known worldwide for being fearless. He would jump anything I pointed him at. If it had flags on it, he knew it was safe. He could go, no matter how awful it looked, there was a way through that, and we would get through it together because I put a real base on him. I taught him like jump only this little tiny point, go where I look. I taught him a lot of things about steering and precision and all of this. When I met Sally Swift for the first time, my riding changed dramatically. And all of a sudden we stopped fighting in dressage. And I became a way better listener at that point to what made him happier and how to work with my body. So I didn't hurt so much and I wasn't hurting him so much. So through the years, as we climbed up the ladder slowly, step by step up the ladder, it just became him and me because conventional techniques didn't work on Gray. So the coach of the team would say, oh, we have to go do this and this and this. And I would say, that's not going to work for Gray. How can I make it look like I'm doing what the coach is telling me to do? But my horse is happy. No, I can't do it that way because my horse will be really mad at me. No, let me see. Okay, let me do it this way. And then like there were, in those days, people used things like tack poles, which are, like nails driven into poles with the heads left sticking out so that they would, if they hit them, it would hurt, it would sting. And I was appalled at that. And so before I would go into jump, I'd lean forward and whisper to Gray, look at that fence and that fence and that fence and that fence. You must jump all the way over those poles and don't touch them or they'll bite you. I really gave him the whole image of, you've got to don't touch those poles because he was Irish. He didn't care about knocking down poles. Didn't bother him any. And then the coach would get so frustrated because Gray wouldn't hit those jumps. I talked to him all the time. I told him the courses. I told him everything that was going on. He was just part of the family. So go ahead.
Was talking to him consistently and so constantly throughout your rounds and throughout your training, is that sort of what evolved you into the communicator that you are today with Gideon?
No, that was an outcome of what I had already tuned into the horses.
Okay.
I was hearing them. I didn't consider myself to be an animal communicator. I just talked to my own horses and I would feel their responses. I had animal communicators come and talk to Gray when they first came out of the closet. They started coming around in the early 80s. They actually came to your farm at that time rather than just being a phone call. And that made me understand that there was a deeper level of communication, that they really could communicate way more clearly than even I was giving them credit for. So yes, we evolved that way, but I was talking to him. I was talking to my horses all the time, right from the get-go. It was natural to me.
Sure.
It felt right. So it was coming from my heart. And I've always listened to my heart. I think that's why I became the success that I became, is because I always listened to my heart. When it would say, you got to buck the system here, Kim. It's not going to be pretty, but you got to buck the system. And I would find a way to do that, so it was not as upsetting as it could have been.
How have you seen horse-human relationships evolve over, say, the past 50 years?
Oh, they've come a long way. A lot of people talk to their horses now. A lot of people use animal communicators. A lot of people talk on the courses. A lot of people explain things. And after they've come to a clinic of mine, they talk to them a whole lot more, because they see what a difference it makes when you explain to the horse, this is why I'm asking you to do this. This is why. They're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Instead of, what? No horse in his right mind would ever cross their legs. No, that's just stupid. You might fall down. Why on earth are you asking me to cross my legs? That's just dumb. But if you tell them why, so we can open and close gates, so we can sidestep something on the trail. So, I mean, that makes more sense than because we've got to do it from this letter to that letter in a dressage arena. Give them the practical applications of it, then they'll get on board with you. They get on board with you.
Okay.
So that connection that we had, a couple of times, the Gray saved my life on cross-country courses. He really came through for me in times when I wasn't able to do anything. I mean, riders think they're in control, but I always trained Gray that I wanted his opinion. I valued his opinion. He knew a lot, as much as I did, about this. And a couple of times he was amazing in saving my life.
Wow. And what about with Gideon Goodhart?
So Gideon was born a master communicator. He was born that way. That when he was born, I was present when he was born, and I had broken the sac so he could breathe. His mother had taken a break. He was only partway out, and she was kind of having a little rest. And he picked his little wet head eyeball, and I heard the words, "I'm here, and I'm here for you," which kind of pretty much weirded me out. It was just like, oh my God, did that just happen?
But how special?
It was special. Yeah, it was very special. And I thought, okay, this one's different. And so after he was born and up and he had nursed and everything, I asked him his name, and he told me it was Gideon. And everybody laughed and made fun of him, because he's going to be in the bedside table in every hotel room because of the Gideon Bible. I mean, I had to go to the Bible and look up Gideon, because it wasn't a name I would have chosen, but it was his name. And I said to him, Gideon, people are laughing. This, you're going to have to grow into this name. I said, humans often have nicknames when they're young. And I said, maybe you could come up with a different name. And he did. And he was that name until he was 7. And when he was 7 one day, I went out and I called him, and he flicked an ear at me, but didn't pick his head up and come like he normally did. And I heard in my head, I'm 7 years old, I'm an adult, and I want my name back. So I had to tell all the other people around that his name was switching back over to Gideon. And they all laughed and thought that was funny, but he wouldn't respond to anything but that. So they all had to change. So that's how much of a communicator he is.
Wow.
And And so, young stallion, once again, I'm in this situation of, I don't know how to I hadn't worked with very many stallions. I don't know how to raise a stallion, but everything people told me in the books I read, I wasn't going to do it like that. I want to get in to be able to be in boarding stables and be well behaved and be able to, compete and do things and be a good boy. And I was just going to have to find a way to do it. And we did. But when he was, let me see, it was also when he was 7, because it was the year that Gray turned 30, I held a birthday party for Gray. And I thought that the party favors, for a party favor, it might be nice people could ride the stallion. I put a Western saddle on him and I led people around on him, and people just thought that was great. It was winter, it was cold, and it was a fun thing. He was really good. Obviously, I trusted him. But the last person was the mother of somebody who had a horse there. And when I went to get off with her on top of him, he wouldn't budge. And I looked back at him and he was calm. And I said, "Come on, Gid." And he said in my head, "I can't go. She's scared." And I thought, wow, she doesn't look scared to me. I walked back over to her and quietly said to her, "Are you feeling some anxiety?" And she said, yes, she did feel anxiety. And so then I talked her through it, and then we walked around. But in my heart, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be okay with this horse because he has a kind heart and he cares about people and he knows their emotional state and he wants to help them. And that was the start for Gideon and I. Down the line, I was having some problems with self-esteem, and Gideon, he dumped me. He dumped me pretty well. And I got some injuries. And he said to me, "This is not truth. You are not these thoughts that you're thinking. That's so far from the truth. Don't let other people get you down in that hole of doubting yourself. Yes, you were brought up that way. Yes, that was your middle life as well, but that's not your life now. Stop doing it. Stop doing that." And he said, "You need to go to life coaching school, Kim. You need more tools to work with people because this is what we're going to be doing." I thought we were doing dressage. Okay. So I did. I spent 2 years going to life coaching school and learning tools. And then he started doing more. And there's the heart math folks have, proven, well, and science has proven that horses, the magnetic field around a horse's heart is much larger than ours, and they can envelop us if they choose in their heart field. And when they do that, nobody can doubt the love that is felt from that. It is overwhelming and all-encompassing. Sometimes people just get in Gideon's presence and they start crying, not sobbing, just tears are leaking down their faces because they feel loved, genuinely, openly accepted and unconditionally loved for the first time in their lives.
Wow. How has this experience with Gideon expanded your thoughts of what might be possible between a horse and a human?
At that point, anything is possible. I'm just taking off all the limitations. The miracles happen all the time. We just have to pay attention to them. They're there. It's amazing. So Gid has just opened every boundary. He has, I'll tell you another thing he did that amazed me. We were teaching a 10-year-old young girl who had come to us because the riding school she had been going to pushed her too fast, and she had multiple bad falls, and she didn't want to give up horses. And her mother had heard that we would be the ones to come to. It was actually an animal communicator who told her to come to us. And Gideon was so gentle with her and so careful. She rode him in a halter, and because I won't let people ride with a bit if they don't know how to ride yet. And he was so gentle and careful with her. I mean, she went from just walking to doing all sorts of things. And then we started doing some jumping. And one day, it was either 2 or 3 years into her lessons with us, he actually recreated the situation of her last trauma, her fall that had caused her such trauma.
Wow.
He did exactly the same circumstance, because her mother told me this. She said, "Oh my God, that is exactly the same situation where she fell and got so injured." He did all the same things, only she had no trouble riding him because she had all the skill sets now. And so that allowed all that trauma that she had been holding to release completely.
Wow.
And I just stood there. I stood there with my jaw dropped in awe of my horse. It's just like he knew she was ready, and he knew the moment, and he set it all up. It was just, he continually astounds me, Mr. Goodhart.
Wow. It's so great that we're having this conversation, especially today, because coming off of the World Equestrian Games and then previously the Tokyo Olympics, it seems like each major competition, at least in the dressage world, there's all this chatter that, whoever the winner is, that's kind of the zenith of what is possible between horses and humans. And so last year at the Tokyo Olympics, it was one horse rider partnership. And then this year at the World Equestrian Games, it's another one that's receiving all the chatter. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that are, because I've been there. I have been there. It was an eventing, but we came in second in the dressage and eventing when we were in the World Championships. There are horses who love to compete, and there are horses who don't love to compete. The Gray absolutely thrived on competition. He loved having adoring fans. He loved going on an airplane. He loved all of it. The traveling, the hoopla, he went from being this like, oh my God, I don't want anything to do with humans. I hate everything. Once he went across his first cross-country course ever, he was like, oh my God, this is so much fun. Okay, I can work with you as long as we get to do this. This is cool. And he did. He turned into a superstar. He knew he was gorgeous, and he loved to just be around his fans. There are horses who compete because they have to. There are horses who compete because they love to. There are people who ride in ways that are about dominance and control. And there are people who ride in ways that are about inviting and receiving. And there's the whole gamut that lies in between. So I guess what I would say is a winning ride where the horse looks like they're having fun, that would indeed be the zenith of horse and rider communication and connection. But that heart-soul connection is often offered by horses, but not recognized or received by their people.
In your experience, what are people missing in those situations?
Well, in the ones where there isn't that heart-soul connection?
Right.
Yeah.
Is it because the people are too distracted and not listening at that deep level? Is it ego? Is it something else that's kind of blocked that connection?
Well, I think there's a real paradigm shift happening, Meredith. We've been taught that humans are the dominant species on the planet. And we have been taught that other animals are here for our use. And we have been taught that they are not intelligent. Now, most people, not everyone by any means, but anybody who's ever had a pet that they've fallen in love with of any kind knows they are intelligent. They know they speak. It was interesting when that movie Babe came out. Do you remember Babe, the talking pig? Yes. That all of a sudden it was okay to talk about your animal talking back to you. I noticed it on the radio. Advertising picked it up big time. and were like, talk about talking animals, and they would have an animal saying something, whether it was on a billboard or it was on a TV show. They just picked up on it, and all of a sudden it was like we were given permission to open our hearts and minds more to the fact that animals are intelligent. They are trying to communicate with us. It always amazed me when I was riding and teaching that horses were expected to learn our language. We're supposed to be the more intelligent species. Why weren't we learning theirs?
That's a good question.
Yeah, why weren't we? And so now then along came natural horsemanship, which was about body language that unfortunately was misunderstood quite a bit, but that's morphed. It's all evolving. But where Gideon has taken me is that it's not just about intellect, and it's not just about body language, and it's about horses primary. Actually, he says, because he's coming in right now, it's all of nature. The primary language of all of nature is energy. It is a non-verbal communication that runs along the lines of frequency and vibration and feeling. It's feeling more than anything else. And vision helps, internal vision. You visualize things. They pick that up from us as well. But this is how horses and other animals know what's going on in Europe. They know what's going on all over the world. They are aware of what happens, catastrophes or disasters, things that happen. I mean, I taught 2 lessons in one day once, and both horses acted so strange. One was dancing around that's normally calm, and the one that had more energy was standing. Every time we'd stop to discuss a point, he would stand spraddle-legged and put his head down and start swaying. And I'd be like, what is going on? And I came home and found out there'd been some big earthquake in Alaska the same time I was teaching those lessons. It was like,
we had something similar happen here in California a couple months ago. Earthquake 200 miles away, and all the horses were acting strange.
Yeah. So anyway, Gideon now has me emphasizing the energetic part of things, that what we can't see, but is definitely there.
We're coming to the end of our episode time, but as the final question that I like to ask all of the guests, what advice would you go back and give yourself now?
Believe in myself, and trust. Absolutely trust what my heart would tell me all the time, because there was so much when I doubted. And there's a wonderful meme that I have on my wall, and it says this: I'm not offended when people call me sensitive. Sensitivity is my superpower. I'm an empathic badass.
I love that.
Isn't that great?
That is.
So I'll send it to you. So that was something that I was majorly criticized about, being so sensitive, but it really was and is my superpower. My sensitivity is what allowed me to connect with the animals and to listen to my heart when it said, you need to practice. My intuition would come in and say, you need to practice this really weird combination of a vertical one stride to a triple bar and backwards, triple bar, one stride to a vertical, which I'd never seen before, but I was like, okay, I'll do that. And then it was in the next competition I went to. Listen.
Wow.
Not just listen, obey. That's the part that I had to learn through the years, and what I would say to my younger self: obey that all the time, no matter how scared you are, or how much it bucks the system, or goes against what somebody else is saying. Listen, trust, and obey.
That's great advice. For our listeners, if you'd like to learn more about Kim, her horses, or how to work with her, you can visit www.thewayofthehorse.com. For more information about me, the host, Meredith Crawford, and my journey with Relevate, and our exploration into the depths of the horse-human relationship, www.patreon.com/Meredith Crawford Lab. Thanks for listening.